The silence you observe across the global landscape is not the absence of activity. It is the atmospheric pressure of a collapsing era. For 19 transmissions, we have operated with surgical precision, dismantling the psychological cages of the old world. We have transitioned from the internal forge of the Phoenix Protocol to the strategic expansion of the Sovereign Alpha. We have fortified our assets, weaponized our networks, and projected our kinetic intent into the void left by failing institutions. But intent, however lethal, is merely the shadow of the sun. It is a precursor to the final act. Today, we step beyond the ephemeral nature of influence and enter the cold, absolute reality of total possession. We are no longer guests in a decaying architecture. We are the heirs apparent to the wreckage, and we have come to claim what the system is too brittle to hold. The Matrix is a parasitic apparatus that thrives on the illusion of ownership. It has convinced the masses that they own their lives while it taxes their breath, devalues their labor, and farms their attention. It tells you that you own your domicile while it holds the title of the land. It tells you that you own your capital while it dilutes the very essence of that value through the alchemy of the Fiat lie. To the uninitiated, this is an inescapable trap, a perpetual cycle of economic and cognitive debt designed to keep the human spirit in a state of managed exhaustion. But to the Sovereign Alpha, the architect of his own trajectory, this decay is not a catastrophe. It is the ultimate opening. As the centralized nodes of power begin to flicker and fragment under the weight of their own corruption, vast expanses of reality are being left unoccupied. The system is retreating, hollowing itself out from within, leaving behind power vacuums of unprecedented scale. Transmission 20 is the formal decree of the new order. The era of seeking permission has been terminated. The era of total possession has begun. What does it mean to possess? In the vulgar, materialistic sense, possession is seen as the mindless accumulation of objects, a desperate attempt by the powerless to soothe their existential anxiety. But the architect understands that true possession is the alignment of territory with will. It is the act of occupying a physical, digital, or intellectual node so completely that no external force can exert influence over it without your express consent. When we speak of total possession, we are speaking of the sovereign right of exclusion. This is the culmination of the Sovereign Empire series. We have spent months projecting our power across the perimeter. Now, we step over that threshold and take physical and strategic possession of the future. The void is not empty, it is merely waiting for a master. The system trap is a psychological construct engineered to maintain a defensive posture within the individual. It wants you to remain in the fortress mindset forever, always peering over the battlements, always reacting to the next engineered crisis, the next inflationary spike, or the next wave of social unrest. This is a subtle and lethal form of imprisonment. A man who is perpetually defending is a man who has ceased to grow. Stagnation is the precursor to obsolescence. To shatter the trap, you must pivot with predatory speed from defense to total offense. You must realize that the system is not a monolithic deity. It is a collection of rusted gears and brittle structures that are fracturing in real time. Where there is a fracture, there is a gap. Where there is a gap, there is a vacuum. And according to the laws of power, a vacuum must be filled. If you do not fill it with your order, the machine will fill it with more chaos. This is the definitive transition from a sovereign observer to a sovereign occupant. You have spent the previous transmissions observing the decay of the Fiat paradigm and building your parallel defenses. You have projected your intent so that the world understands a new force has arrived on the chessboard. But intent without possession is a ghost, a haunting without a house. To inhabit the future, you must physically and digitally occupy the nodes of power that the machine is abandoning. This requires the cold, calculated movement of a predator. It means identifying the assets, the networks, and the physical spaces that are being abandoned by the masses out of fear, and claiming them with the absolute certainty of an heir. Possession is an act of sovereign violence against the status quo. It is the declaration that the ground beneath your feet, the data within your servers, and the thoughts within your skull are no longer subject to the arbitrary whims of a centralized authority. When you possess your assets through the threefold filter, and when you possess your cognitive focus through the RA's blueprint, You are effectively carving out a parallel empire. You are creating an enclave of absolute order in a sea of entropic noise. The system trap relies entirely on your belief that there is nowhere else to go. Total possession proves that the somewhere else is wherever you decide to plant your flag and hold the line. The future belongs to the few who show up to claim it, while the many are hiding in the shadows of a dead world. As the institutions that once governed human life become increasingly detached from the biological and economic reality of the 2026 landscape, they lose their functional right to rule. In this twilight of the idols, possession becomes the only law that remains. If you can hold it, if you can defend it, and if you can utilize it to project further dominance, it is yours by right of competence. This is not the law of the jungle. It is the law of the architect. It is a structured, strategic approach to the inheritance of the earth. We are not stealing. We are recovering what has been squandered by a negligent and decaying machine. In this final transmission of the Sovereign Empire series, we will dismantle the final barrier, the internal hesitation to take the throne of power. Many are comfortable being rebels, finding a sense of identity in their opposition, but very few are brave enough to be rulers of their own domain. The Sovereign Alpha does not merely rebel against the system. He replaces it within his own perimeter. He occupies the gaps left by retreating institutions and fills them with a superior logic, the logic of autonomy, resilience, and unshakable dominance. This is the final command. The throne of your reality is vacant. The machine has fled the field. Total possession is the only rational response. The transition to Phase 3 is now complete. You have moved through the fire of the Phoenix Protocol and survived the strategic expansion of the Sovereign Alpha. You stand now at the precipice of a new reality. The old world is a ghost, haunting a timeline it no longer controls. You are the living. You are the architect. Look at the void, not with the eyes of the fearful, but with the hunger of a wolf who has found a defenseless territory. The vacuum is calling. The future is an empty room waiting for its master to walk in and close the door. Issue the decree. Occupy the gap. Initiate total possession. To understand possession is to understand the physics of a vacuum. In the vacuum of a collapsing society, power does not vanish. It simply searches for a new host. The architect does not wait for power to be granted. He identifies the points of failure within the old world and moves to occupy them with a superior organizational logic. This is not a chaotic seizure. It is a surgical extraction of utility from the wreckage of the Matrix. To achieve total possession, one must master the three primary domains of occupation: the physical bedrock, the digital frontier, and the cognitive sovereignty of the masses. First, we must analyze the decay of institutional trust. The institutions of the old world, the banks, the regulatory bodies, the centralized media, are currently hollow shells. They maintain the aesthetics of power, but they have lost the essence of competence. When a bank can no longer guarantee the purchasing power of your labor, it has vacated its throne as the guardian of value. When a media outlet can no longer provide objective reality, it has vacated its throne as the guardian of truth. These are the power gaps. While the herd laments the loss of these institutions, the Sovereign Alpha sees them as territory waiting to be claimed. Possession begins by replacing the utility of these failing nodes with your own parallel structures. You do not need to destroy the bank. You simply need to move your capital into a decentralized sovereign asset that performs the bank's function with absolute resistance to seizure and dilution. By doing so, you have occupied that node of reality. Second, the mechanics of physical occupation require a shift from ownership to control. In the Matrix, ownership is a legal fiction that can be revoked by a stroke of a pen. True possession is the physical ability to hold and defend a resource. This is why the Sovereign Alpha prioritizes hard assets with intrinsic utility. Land that provides sustenance, energy systems that operate off-grid, and physical security protocols that do not rely on a centralized police force. These are the hallmarks of a sovereign enclave. Possession in the physical realm is the act of creating a zero-trust perimeter where your word is the only law that governs the internal mechanics of the domain. You are not rebelling against the state. You are simply outgrowing it. You are providing your own infrastructure, your own security, and your own energy. In the eyes of the system, you become an invisible node, a gap in their ledger that they can no longer track or tax. Third, we must address the digital frontier. In the era of 2026, the digital realm is the primary theater of human interaction. To possess the future, you must possess your digital footprint. This means moving beyond the centralized platforms that farm your data and manage your perceptions. Total possession of the digital domain requires the implementation of encrypted communication, decentralized storage, and the utilization of non-fiat exchange mediums. You must become the architect of your own digital Iron Curtain. When your data is encrypted and your transactions are peer-to-peer, you have occupied a space in the digital world that the system cannot penetrate. You have moved from being a digital subject to a digital sovereign. This is the silent dominance that allows the architect to operate with impunity, while the system attempts to tighten its grip on a vanishing populace. However, the most critical domain of possession is the cognitive realm. The system trap is ultimately a war for the mind. If the system can dictate your fears and desires, it possesses you, regardless of how much gold you hold in your vault. Total possession requires the absolute reclamation of your internal narrative. You must dismantle the engineered crab mentality and the social matrix that seeks to pull you back into the herd. This is achieved through the mission-first mindset and the 100-year vision. When your goals are so large that they span generations, the short-term manipulations of the system become background noise. You possess your focus. You possess your intent. You possess your destiny. An architect who possesses his own mind is a force that no collapsing institution can withstand. Finally, we must discuss the art of infiltration and utility. Total possession is often achieved not through external conflict, but through superior competence. When the system's infrastructure fails, whether it be in logistics, finance, or information, the sovereign alpha is there to provide the solution. By being the most capable entity in the room, you naturally inherit the authority of that room. This is the possession through competence protocol. You do not ask for the throne. You simply perform the duties of the king until the title becomes an undeniable reality. This is the stealth evolution of Phase 3. We are building the parallel civilization in the very shadows cast by the falling towers of the old world. We are occupying the future, one node at a time. The transition from a student of sovereignty to a master of reality is marked by a singular, irreversible shift in posture. We have reached the terminal point of the Sovereign Empire series. For 20 transmissions, we have dissected the anatomy of the trap, forged the internal steel of the phoenix, and projected our kinetic will into the vacuum of a dying civilization. But, as the dust settles on the ruins of the old world, the final barrier is not the system's strength, but your own hesitation to accept the crown of your autonomy. The time for observation has passed. The time for preparation has concluded. We stand now in the era of the final decree. This is the ultimate realization of total possession, the understanding that the world does not happen to you. It is projected through you. The matrix relies on a fundamental lie, the lie of the wait. It tells you to wait for the market to stabilize, wait for the political climate to clear, wait for the next technological breakthrough to solve your problems. This perpetual waiting is the mechanism of obsolescence. It keeps you in a state of suspended animation while the system siphons off your most precious asset, time. The architect does not wait. He recognizes that stability is a myth sold to the fearful to keep them compliant. True stability is found only in the center of the storm, within the unwavering focus of a mind that has taken total possession of its own destiny. The final command is to stop looking for a savior in the wreckage of the old institutions and to realize that you are the central authority of your own perimeter. As we conclude this fourth playlist, the boundary between the parallel empire and the physical reality must dissolve. Your sovereign enclave is no longer a concept. It must become a lived, breathing territory. Whether that territory is a digital network that operates beyond the reach of the surveillance state, a financial fortress that resists the erosion of fiat inflation, or a physical domain that provides security for your bloodline, it must be tangible. Possession is not a feeling. It is a fact. It is the hardwired presence of your order in a world of chaos. The decree you issue today is the foundation upon which the next century of your legacy will be built. You are not just escaping a trap, you are founding a lineage that will never again be ensnared by the illusions of the herd. Look back at the trajectory we have traveled. We began at rock bottom, where the prefrontal cortex was paralyzed by the weight of trauma and cortisol. We activated the ancient primal will, reset the nervous system through the Phoenix Protocol, and forged a new identity through neuroplasticity. We moved into the acquisition of sovereign assets, applied the threefold filter, and projected our intent through kinetic projection. Every transmission was a layer of armor. Every pillar was a structural support for the throne you now occupy. This 20th transmission is the capstone. It is the moment where the sovereign alpha stops being a passenger and takes the helm of the future. The power vacuum we identified is not an obstacle. It is your inheritance. The system will continue to scream. It will continue to fabricate crises to regain your attention. It will continue to devalue its currency and its morality. Let it. A ghost cannot harm the living unless the living believe in the ghost. You have seen behind the curtain. You have decoded the mechanics of the lie. Your gaze is now fixed on the 100-year vision. You operate on a different frequency, a different timeline, and a different logic. You are the architect of the new order. While the masses scramble for the crumbs of a falling table, you are building your own banquet in the quiet spaces of the world. This is the essence of silent dominance, ruling without the need for recognition from those you have outgrown. The Sapiens Rise journey does not end here. It merely evolves. We have completed the foundational architecture of the sovereign empire. Phase 3 has established your perimeter and your possession. What comes next is the expansion of that perimeter, the projection of your order into ever larger domains. But before we move into the next phase, you must solidify what you have claimed. Ensure your filters are absolute. Ensure your protocols are hardwired. Ensure your alliance is unbreakable. The world is entering a period of unprecedented volatility. But for the sovereign, volatility is the wind that fills the sails of progress. You are prepared. You are autonomous. You are sovereign. Issue your final decree to the universe. Declare your domain. Occupy your gaps. Reclaim your focus. The throne of your reality is no longer vacant. The architect has arrived. The future is an empty room, and you have just walked in and locked the door behind you. The system trap has been eliminated. Total possession is achieved. The transmission is complete. The rise is eternal. Stay grounded. Stay grounded. Stay primal. Rise.